I would like to thank and congratulate the New Voice of Africa, its leadership and members, its partners and distant colleagues. In a similar way, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to our local schools, counting a few: Bishop High School, Palasi Primary School, Bishop Primary School, Zamega Secondary School, ZK Matthews Secondary School, among others. In a profound manner, I would like to thank our local artists of the District of King Williamstown who have shown interest and support and also have agreed to partake in the process of building this new library for our local schools. My humble debt of gratitude goes to Eldon West, who will play with me the new play this summer of 2021. The play entitled The Days of Our Lives Are the Bold and the Beautiful We Have This Life, with the aim of raising more funds for this project. Again, I would like to thank the Steve Biko Foundation, who have become our partners in pursuit of this initiative. And I must say, indeed, I am very humbled to be part of such a collective. My team and I are working on upgrading and updating a library of one of our schools around King Williamstown. We have identified, however, that the library in Bishop High School is indeed outdated. This means that the library has reached a point where it can no longer serve its purpose, that is to advance learners in their studies, because it is not useful to the current syllabus. But not as devastating as other libraries in some of our schools around, of which most do not even have, counting a few: Zamega Secondary School, Tutu Primary School, Palasi Primary School, ZK Matthews Secondary School, Zamega, and others. The challenge of starting at Bishop High School is, first and foremost, we have aligned ourselves with the school as an organization, as we have identified it as to be the center of other schools. And this goes back when I used to assist history learners in the winter school after I matriculated, where I would find almost, if not all, schools around the District of King Williamstown would be represented. Starting this project at Bishop High School, again, would open channels for other schools around to gain access to the library for free, as we have spoken to some teachers and librarians in the school. One other reason is that the school is much safer than some of the schools mentioned earlier, of which all of them would like to be part of this project. I'm quite certain, not going very far, in Andis Etikeni, we have the same problem in our schools. Again, counting a few: Kwazinamba Junior Secondary School, Jabavu Secondary School, Mavuso Primary School, Hillcrest Primary School, even Davidson Primary School, Lovedale Primary School, and including Zululazi Senior Secondary School, among others. A number of college and university libraries, and including seminary library that I have visited, have a number of doctoral theses and master's dissertation by African scholars. It is important to note, however, that these theses and dissertations are presented at various universities and libraries by African scholars. One thesis is on quality assurance in higher education in Southern Africa: the case of the University of Witwatersrand, Zimbabwe and Botswana, by Ephraim Mhlanga in 2008. And it stated that although this study was largely qualitative, it did not preclude quantitative dimensions. Integrating the two approaches made it possible not only to triangulate data, but also to engage in multidimensional analysis of some of the phenomena under investigation. And it further stated that the aim and the main contribution of this thesis to debate on quality assurance is its revelation of the complexities that arise in institutional policy making as a result of highly differentiated nature of the academy. And this aspect points at the need for institutions to pay particular care in adopting most appropriate strategies that privilege the organic development of policies within institutions, while debates in the literature locate quality assurance within the internal and external discourses. And another thesis is on education policy and social justice in higher education by Masebala Jabane in the University of Pretoria in 2010. This thesis stated that the study seeks to share new insights into the limits of grand policy frameworks that promise much by way of social justice but deliver very little in real terms. And Jabane further stated that the study is further likely to contribute insights into how higher education can implement programs so as to purportedly address and redress social injustices and inequalities, when in essence these programs achieve little more than a public relation objective. And yet another is on contemporary Black protest literature in South Africa, a materialistic analysis by Selepe Thapelo Joshua in the University of South Africa in 1993. This particular one stated that the genesis and development of modern African literature in indigenous languages in South Africa cannot be satisfactorily handled without linking them to the historical, social, and political developments in South Africa. The first literary works to be published in South Africa in indigenous languages were the products of Western imperialist agents, the missionaries playing the role especially. This literature was later exposed to further ideologies when the government took control of education for Africans. And the intensification of the liberation struggle from mid-20th century saw literature becoming another area of resistance and resistance politics in South Africa. African writers began to write in English. The birth of the Black consciousness movement in the late 60s gave further impetus to this development with the emergence of Black protest literature. And this study seeks to investigate the developments in both African literature and Black protest literature by employing a materialistic analysis, specifically focusing on ideology as a material condition. Another journal stated that research in African literatures, founded in 1970, is the premier journal of African literary studies worldwide and provides a forum in English for research on the oral and written literatures of Africa. In addition to thought-provoking essays, reviews of current scholarly books appear in every issue, often presented as critical essays, and the forum offers readers the opportunity to respond to issues raised in articles and book reviews. Thematic clusters of articles and frequent special issues reveal the broad interest of its readers. And the last one is on Umoya Wamagama, the Spirit of the Word, by the former Haitian priest and former first democratically elected president of Haiti, President Aristide, in 2009. This is available in UNISA and in the University of Haiti. This thesis, entitled Umoya Wamagama, endeavors to establish the nature of the relationship between isiZulu and the Haitian Creole. As a member of the Nguni group, isiZulu is spoken by Africans. On the other side, Creole is spoken by African descendants of Haiti, the world's first Black independent republic. Reviewed from a multidisciplinary perspective, these two languages exhibit a significant relationship, hence this important observation. This is Zulu, Haitian Creole, so close to each other, yet so far. In other words, they are far from a linguistic point of view, but close from a psycho-theological perspective. So far in a way that comparative linguistics shows that Creole is generally and genetically related to French and Latin. And so close, born in Haiti during the transatlantic slave trade, Creole keeps alive the spirit of the African ancestors and still contains linguistic roots of ancestral languages. Apart from these dissertations and theses, these are several other themes, and there are several themes particular to African literature. Apartheid, negritude, assimilation, racism, lack of education, dual identity of mixed people, etc. Are some of them dealt with and the powerful writing from the African continent. I have cited and quoted these dissertations and theses because over many years in the past, in our continent, a number of our educationists have expressed their grievances and great concern on what they refer to as a failure of our universities to produce new and relevant knowledge. For instance, 12 years ago, in 2009, the Association of African Universities published the Abuja Declaration on Sustainable Development in Africa, the role of higher education. It acknowledged that the real challenges for sustainable development in Africa are the promotion of economic and industrial development, the eradication of poverty, optimal use of natural resources, and resolution of conflicts. It further said that the African higher education research agenda tends to focus on purely academic and scientific objectives in order to ensure publication with little regard to developmental needs because of the publish and perish syndrome. Again, it said most of the research works in Africa are really relevant for continental solutions to health, food security, climate change, water, energy, and education. The findings have remained in shelves in these universities and libraries and unavailable to those who need to take action or implement what is often useful recommendations. In 2011, the former Secretary General of the Association of African Universities and former President of the International Association of Universities and former Chancellor of the University of Mauritius, Professor Ghulam Mohammed Bam, he wrote that most faculty undertake research for personal gain with the aim of publishing of international refereed journals for promotion purposes. The chosen topics, often not appropriate for national development, much of the research is externally funded, and being determined by the funders, the topics may not be directly relevant to national development. And most of the research end up in the university library shelves, in theses and dissertations, or advanced research journals. They are thus not accessible, true, or understood by policymakers or even communities. While respecting these comments and views made by these esteemed professors and educated people, we must attest to the truth that, nevertheless, new and relevant knowledge is indeed being produced by African scholars. And on the other side, the late Professor Albert Girosimi Jones of the University of Sierra Leone has pointed one other challenge that faced by our universities. He said that our students are faced by unemployment. This is a social problem that has already resulted in a growing class of disaffected citizens. It is of great importance to look at the causes of unemployment and see how we deal with them. Immediately, I am thinking of an open letter that I wrote to the Chancellor of the University of Fort Hare, the Advocate Dumi Sansereza, that we complain about the high rate of unemployment, but we never question the relevance of what we study to the current economy. And again, we never create any programs for the youth as to address the problem. In 2015, Mr. Brian Williams, a US professional economist, made similar comments and observations as a former student of Duke University in the US. His article entitled, "Elite Universities Are Turning Our Kids into Corporate Stooges." Brian Williams said, among other things, Duke is a business, as are all colleges, and everyone has a job. The professors care more about their real job, that is to publish and produce academic journals, than teaching. The students are taught usually not very thoroughly, mostly by former students and part-time instructors. And he further said we should even stop trying to convince every high schooler in America that college is the right choice. And I think we should do the same in Africa. And Stephen Joel Drachenberg, the former president of George Washington University, acknowledged that he worked to transform the school into a luxury brand, as reported by the New York Times. He said college is like vodka, and vodka by definition is a flavorless beverage. It all tastes the same, but people would spend $30 for a bottle of Absolut vodka because of the brand. The implication is that all higher education are the same, but some schools are just schooler than others. However, universities should be a philosophical thought center of the society. But elite university still largely initiate elite students into corporate ruling class. The real purpose of education is to learn, question and apply, and not to make sure that you are on time to obey interview procedures. My point is that these theses and dissertations should be also available to our own secondary schools libraries as we deal with people who are our next leaders and thinkers. On this instance, I would like to quote a letter that was written to the then director and CEO of the Steve Biko Foundation, Ms. Obenewa Amponsa, by the then debater of BHS and Best Actor of the Department of Education, Eastern Cape, James Gregory. An open letter to the CEO, dated 12 September 2014. James Gregory said, among other things, in one way or the other, we must face the reality. We must meditate whether we are providing enough resources and providing resources sufficient to enable education in our schools to produce the expected outcomes. And Gregory said all of these are critical questions which we must, at the end of the day, give answers to if we are really concerned about the education as we claim. As much as higher education can never function in isolation from the challenges that society faces, education on level ground cannot too. We cannot expect the leaves of a tree to be green if the roots are not moist and white. Our education and education on what I call on level ground must be sustained by the goodwill of the society it seeks to serve. And that society must express confidence in its capacity to produce public good and to dream its future. As we are building this new library for our local schools, I would like to plead with the society that they assist us in raising more funds and donate books that will help our learners advance their education. In the same letter that I quoted earlier to the Chancellor of the University of Fort Hare, I humbly ask that the Advocate Dumisa Ntsebeza to kindly make their facilities accessible to the society, that the learners around have a taste of a library and how it works. And universities, I am quite certain, have a program of constantly updating their libraries, as research is constantly happening. As we are still endeavoring on this project, I plead with the Chancellor of UFH to kindly make these libraries available to our people. This is due to a number of observations that students who just matriculated find it difficult to use a library in each university or any institution of higher education. They find themselves in. And another task we have is to ask our local libraries and librarians to train our learners on how to use one and how to become one as interest progresses. I was very glad to have set a meeting with Mr. Bruce Waters, the Chief Operating Officer of the Steve Biko Foundation, who is also working on this Learner Librarian project. And I must say that together we are meanwhile opting to have a mobile library as to quicken the process. Again, I would humbly ask the community and the society, friends, and all people of goodwill to kindly help me, as I am one of the contestants in the Hadithi ya Africa, which is Swahili for Stories of Africa. I kindly ask you all to vote for me as I am raising these funds to build this new library. You vote on the website of Hadithi ya Africa, and that is www.story.africa, and again www.story.africa. You go to my profile, which has my face and my story that is entitled Being Royalty by James Gregory. You vote by liking the video on the heart. Please also share these news with your friends and ask them to share them with their friends too. I would like to conclude by quoting one of our esteemed Xhosa poets, writer, orator, Samuel Krune Mkhai, also known as S.E.K. Mkhai, when he said, and I quote, "Athi ke mna mntu walibethayo, athi ke mna mntu wathi uyakwazi ukuthetha, kazi ke nina nanisithi ndisisilo sini na, esinothetha nezinto ezingathethekiyo. Kunamhlanje ilizwe liyazuza, kunamhlanje lo mhlaba uyalunywa. Into esesiswini maze niyilumkele, loo nto esesisalweni maze niyindwebele. Namhla ngathi kuzalwa uGilikanqo, ngathi kuzalwa isilo esingaziwa ngqo. Mawethu, ndiyabulela, ngiyabonga, ngiyalebuga, natotela sana, enkosi, ndiyabulela, dankie baya, ngiyathokoza, asante sana, mas enetokazi, and I thank you."